who are you potentially backing or you see as favourites for this World Cup and why?
I'm not backing anyone.
Zimbabwe had amazing qualifiers, by the way. It's just unfortunate.
No, they didn't. They didn't qualify.
We need
How can you have amazing qualifiers and not
a straight
qualify?
answer. We need a straight answer.
I mean, how's this guy? Like, really.
Let's be honest.
When I watched the last moment.
So that's not an amazing qualifier.
They were amazing. Okay,
it's like running a race and falling before the line. Like, come on, man.
Even
look at that.
Yeah. Okay, I was trying to bring you in. Yeah.
Really. Okay.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the All Rounders podcast with myself, Pilasanda Sikaba, and of course, Nono Pongolo, the man who lost all 3 points this weekend. Fantastic weekend for Manchester United. And yeah, before we introduced our first ever guest on the All Rounders podcast, I want to give a quick shout out to the DP World Wanderers for hosting us again so graciously. Fantastic space. Also, if you're in and around the Johannesburg area, please come and watch the One Day Cup matches here at the Wanderers. I think they're hosting 2 matches over the next 2 weeks.
Yep.
So please get your tickets and come in and support domestic cricket.
What's in 1-0 again? Is it
Wozanawe?
I think that's the one.
Wozanawe. That's
Be
the
part
one.
of it.
Yes,
I think something like that.
That is it. That is it. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives us great pleasure to welcome our first ever guest on the podcast, a man who played 15 test matches for Zimbabwe, 29 ODIs for Zimbabwe, and of course, a renowned voice in the commentary box, not only in South Africa, but globally as well. Please put your digital hands together for Mpumelelo, Pommie, Mbangwa.
Those don't sound like digital.
Oh, those are digital hands. Those are great digital
hands.
Pom, morning. Thanks for your time. Yeah.
How's it? How's it feel? Like, yeah, good to be here. Yeah, thanks for the invite.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I was the first one.
You were the first one.
I thought this has kind of been going for a really long time, and I was just kind of part of it. Hey, don't touch the mic.
Tell him.
Okay? Yeah. All right.
Yeah. No, thanks.
Sorry, I'm not the boss here, but I know who is, and they said don't touch the mic. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for being our first. Yeah. It's nice for.
On the the red?
It's nice couch.
Nice
couches for being our first.
I'll try and divulge.
Pom, thanks. I think we just wanted to really find out what happens at the Cricket World Cup, because there's a lot of dynamics that go into a tournament like that in a country like India. It's vast. There are different playing surfaces. There are different teams that come into the contest on different surfaces. So we wanted to just prick your brain about that and just try and give our viewers a good overview of what to expect in India. But before we get to that, you're a Manchester United fan.
I am.
Yeah.
I am. No, let me clarify.
Supporter.
I am a Manchester United supporter. Okay. You'll find their difference to the fans.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Oh, before we carry on, actually, can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay? What team do you support?
Thank you.
And what team are you a fan of?
I'm a Chelsea supporter.
Okay.
And I am a Chelsea fan.
Okay.
Yeah. All in one.
Clarify.
All in one.
Thank you.
All in one.
Okay.
How are you feeling after the weekend?
I feel good. If it pertains to Manchester United, I'm okay with Manchester United. I believe that every team has to go through what United are going through. And perhaps I should say every big team.
Like Chelsea.
And that kind of eliminates many.
Like Chelsea.
Has to go through the things that Man United are going through. And when that happens, there'll be much joy derived by those who are envious and jealous and will never be like Manchester United. So that's okay.
Where have you been this podcast?
I think so. Don't worry 5 weeks. And can we say no? don't worry on our behalf. Let us be the ones to worry. It'll be okay.
I think no one watches more United games
Than opposition. You know what I mean? Like, goodness gracious. Anyway, Can we move on now?
Yeah, we definitely. Case closed. Case closed.
I think we should bring Pommie every week.
Everybody in the Manchester United corner is happy. Pommie, there was a great game here at the Wanderers yesterday. South Africa versus Australia, fifth and final ODI. Basically a decider to win the series, but in context of the World Cup, it was an important one for South Africa to try and win a pressure game like that. Do you think the recipe of how they've played in this series can take them forward into a World Cup and potentially, because nobody's really speaking about them as contenders, potentially win them a Cricket World Cup?
Yeah, I think it's good that people aren't speaking about them as contenders. Because they aren't, if I'm being brutally honest, right? If the three of us were to try and pick two teams to say these two might be in the final in India, one of them wouldn't be South Africa. Certainly not on analysis. It might be from a kind of patriotism and a wishes and horses scenario. So that's fine. I think in the series against Australia, inadvertently, they kind of got placed in situations that would yield them the best results. And by that, I mean, yes, pressure game and everything, but if yesterday, and this is not gospel, if yesterday Temba won the toss and decided to bowl first, and Australia puts on 260 or 270, I think we then would see the frailties of the side, right? Which is a case of an order that's probably not quite long enough. And it's not being quite long enough stands up to the pressure of you have to set a score. But it's more difficult to stand up to the pressure of you're behind the rate and you have to try and chase down this score. So I hope that they find what the blueprint is for them when they get to India. Unless conditions say definitely and without a shadow of a doubt in anyone's mind, you must bowl first. I think it would suit South Africa to bat first in most of those venues and then deal with, and I hope the bowling gets better and better as it did during the series, but as a bowling unit, it's not something that South Africa has worried about over the years, bowling. And they've got the recipe, they've got all the, the various ingredients in terms of a bowling group. One, what's going to be important is selection, but two, can they put a score on the board and then try to exert pressure and take wickets and defend scores, as I think would be the best way for them.
I just think, Pommie, has it been surprising to you to have seen what bowling has probably been South Africa's strength over probably last 2 years, and it's gone to be maybe area of concern in terms of how they are as a unit in terms of lines, lengths, considering, I mean, we watch a lot of Travis Head and David Warner open the batting in that power play, and often we saw South Africa bowling really wide lines and conceding a lot of runs in that power play, where obviously now we're trying to go to the World Cup. It might be, might be smaller grounds, so that power play plays a massive role in terms of giving an opposition an early start or big start up front. How much of a concern is that going to a World Cup?
It is a concern. I think anytime... The problem, right, is always that each game that you play as a national team is an event in itself, right? So it's never part of a process. You can never sort of say, this is warm-up. You can't kind of differentiate between what is a game where a guy is playing his first one out of off-season and where he's playing right optimal performance and fitness and match readiness and mental readiness in the middle of a season and he's going and fully fit. There's never any differentiation between those. But here, for context and for kind of separation and going with what's important and what everyone's looking toward, it wouldn't really have mattered if South Africa lost to Australia.
Yeah.
If we could say, let's swap that with a win in the World Cup final in India. Right? No, in Ahmedabad. So away we go to Ahmedabad, and it's 19th of November, and South Africa in the final, and they play Australia, and they beat them, right? Who would remember that they went down 3-2 at Wanderers? Nobody would, right? So in answer to your question, yes, it's a worry, because you watch and you think X and Y should happen, and this bowling group should be so good, and they should be able to contain Travis Head and Mitchell Marsh and David Warner. But South Africa's team's coming out of off-season. And in fact, I would call it not so much off-season, they're coming out of 2020 season. And you know as well as I do that it's different bowling 1 over and 2 over spells and trying to put together a 5 and 6 over spell in a power play in a 50 over game. Right? So that, from a mental perspective, from a physical exertion perspective, from a can you be right on it perspective throughout that power play. And whether you're bowling, whether you're captain and having to shift these things, whether you're right on it in terms of seeing what's happening, and can you shift or can you stick with something that potentially could kind of break the game for you. That sort of thing. All of that takes time. Right? And these 5 games have been great. And so there'll be another couple of games. And even in the World Cup, the issue is get to the next stage. It's not, they lost this one against so-and-so. Do you know what I'm saying? And yes, post the tournament, you can go, gee, these guys weren't good against that, and they didn't whatever. But you can't look at anything in isolation, I don't think. KG, Lungi, Anrich, Marco. There's a seam attack to die for. Right? Gerald Coetzee, fire. He's got lots of fire. Can you pick him correctly on the right surfaces where he's going to cause trouble? But those other 4 are the main players. Marco Jansen must play just about every game. If he's fit, get him on the park. Right? And then everyone works together. There will be venues where both Keshav and Tabrez Shamsi must play, right? And I hope in selection there's the recognition of that, because sometimes, and I remember a tour to Sri Lanka, a test match tour, and I'm trying to think if South Africa wins or loses, because I mix up the 2 tours. There's the one where
not the
Titan Sky.
Sangakara.
No.
That's
way back.
That's before your time. That's
way
before,
back.
That's before your time. I think I was playing it. So like that's a long time ago. And yes, that still gives many nightmares. But Tennis De Bruin gets 100.
Oh, yes. I remember that.
Yes.
That tour.
Yes.
And then I think the previous one is where they hold on there. At same ground, Colombo. The previous one is with Amla as captain, and the next one is, I'm trying to think who would be captain. I don't know. Quentin de Kock? Maybe Faf. Maybe Faf. I can't remember. But in that game, they picked 4 seamers. 4 seamers and a spinner or something. And Shamsi's father passes away, and he flies back to South Africa and comes back. But in the game before, I think he takes 9 or something, doesn't he? Something like that. He takes a whole lot of wickets anyway. And they had to play 2 spinners in that game. And I remember walking out to the middle and looking and thinking, we're not going past 3 days. It's impossible. Like, I'm looking at the pitch. There's no way. And then when we hear what the South African team is, hold on. When is the 3rd seamer gonna bowl? Like, do you know what I mean? And the kind of explanation was, South Africa's going back to what they know, which has brought them great success, which is the fast bowlers and whatever. And that's a stubborn attitude.
Yeah.
You don't want to
Yeah.
be like that.
Yeah.
Look at conditions,
Yeah.
assess them, and err on the side of this is what the conditions say,
saying, yeah.
not on the side of this is what we normally do.
Yeah.
And if you turn up in the subcontinent and do that, then you're going to be struggling with a lack of resources, but not really wrong use of resources.
Yeah. Speaking about resources, South Africa find themselves in a bit of a conundrum now because of a couple of injuries. And you mentioned Hendrik Nokia being very important to sort of the makeup of that bowling attack, and particularly on surfaces that might suit the faster bowlers. It's obviously early season in India as well.
No, let me, sorry to cut in. But Hendrik Nokia is not important because of the surfaces that will suit faster bowlers. If there are surfaces that will suit faster bowlers, he's less missed.
Yeah.
On the surfaces that don't suit faster bowling,
That's right.
his pace through the air is what gives you an advantage.
Yeah.
So if you're playing in Dharamshala, and it's quick and bouncy, you can play whoever is available because South Africa has this battery of fast bowlers, and they'll do the job. They should do the job.
Yeah.
But if you then take a Gerald Coetzee and you go and play him on a pitch that's flat, so Mohali, for instance, which is not quick, but it's flat and they smash fast bowlers, then suddenly you need experience and you need that pace through the air, and Gerald doesn't quite fit the bill, because these guys will go at him and he won't know how to respond. Whereas Hendrik has been there before and he's seen it all before, he's seen them all before, so he can handle.
So I was going in that direction. So let's say hypothetically he doesn't make it because of that back injury, and Magala's also a bit of a doubt. I know that they're trying to get him some game time just before they depart for India to just prove his fitness throughout a 50-over game. But how important would be a loss to South Africa for an Hendrik Nokia and a guy like Magala, who also skill-wise sort of fits the puzzle nicely?
Fitness is big in the subcontinent. More so than anywhere else. I mean, you just get sapped. That's it. Like
I've seen jerseys get stuck on body.
That's like before. So before we even go into what are your skills like and all the rest,
Gotta be fit.
The issue is, can you withstand? Can you be out there for 50 overs?
Yeah.
And you can't. This is the ultimate, right? This is like tip-top competition of like whoever is out there. They're the best of the best.
Yeah.
So can you bring your best?
Yeah.
Like through the whole game. Your 3.5 hours, you have to be on it mentally, you have to be on it physically, and your skills have to be tip-top. If your team's going to win.
Yeah.
And you can't afford to be taking guys who are going to kind of go through the motions through the game or be able to give you one spell of 4 or 5 overs up front and then go missing when you're at the back of the game and the game hots up. So those decisions must be made. There's also the issue of if you take guys who are already injured into the tournament, you have to prove that their injuries were when they were in the tournament to be able to replace them. So you don't want to do that. You hamper yourself because these guys could go and legitimately injure further their original injuries. But protocol says, well, you can't replace them because it's the same thing. So you have to keep him, right? Because you brought him here injured. You chose that. So you don't want to do that. And it's unfortunate, but you can't put bad milk into your flour to make your bread, right? Like, or whatever it is you're making, right? You can't. If you do that, then you're going to get a bad cake. Or you know what I mean? So, and this is not to say the guys aren't good. It's just that they're not fit, right? And if they're not fit, just don't take them.
Well, I mean, I always probably tell Pila, when we look at the South African team, often we're looking at individuals, and we don't look at, like you mentioned earlier, the conditions that you're playing in. What's the best 11 that could be, to play those conditions against the opposition that you're playing? We got to talk about India, which is completely, I'm going to say completely different to what we've just seen in South Africa. What type of conditions, I think, should we be expecting? Considering that it's a 50-over competition, that means, the conditions with the stadiums that are available up front to the middle to the end might change throughout the tournament.
Yeah.
What type of conditions might we get up front?
Yeah, so generally, so I can say with certainty that if you play in Chennai,
Yeah.
it'll spin, right?
Yeah.
Comfortably. So you can straight away say, okay, where are we looking to play two spinners?
Yeah.
And where will potentially Markram have to bowl overs as well
Yes.
as the two spinners?
He was very reluctant in your interview with him. He said he's probably not, but
No,
he
no,
has to call her.
I think his reluctance was because he doesn't make the decision. The
Yeah.
skipper does, right? Yeah, but he'll be required.
Yeah.
You know, and that's in Chennai. As far as pace is concerned, you will get joy
Yeah.
at the beginning of the season, certainly, and probably through it, up in Dharamshala.
Yeah.
It bounces nicely there, and you want to play there. And you actually want to play, I can't remember, South Africa might play the Netherlands there, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dharamshala, 17th of October.
Yeah, so it might
it's
be
Netherlands.
So there's Netherlands
Yeah.
there, which, truth be told, if you're picking who to play there, that's not who you'd pick.
Yeah.
You'd rather go to any of the other venues to play Netherlands, and you pick one of the big guns
Yeah.
to play them at Dharamshala
Yeah.
because it brings in your strongest suit,
Yes.
and your batters don't mind fast
Facing,
bowling.
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
So it's going to be so you can kind of have a contest there
Yeah.
against whoever.
Yeah.
But such is life, it's the Netherlands, and the faster bowlers, they will hold sway there.
Yeah.
No problem. If we go to Mumbai, there'll be a bit of swing. There'll be a bit of bounce, not at the same sort of pace that everyone's accustomed to, but sometimes it can also turn. And as you go along through the tournament, I think you'll get a bit more to
Yeah.
it, you know, at that venue. There's very much a case of having to mix and match, and sometimes what you see on the day,
Yeah.
you have to read correctly.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you think, oh, this one will, will be fast or whatever. I don't think so. You know, this one might bounce. Nah, I don't think so. You know, but as the tournament goes towards the end, just simply because we're in the subcontinent, I believe that the spinners will come into it more. Yes, the various grounds have, you know, different pitches along the square,
Yes.
but the squares get tired, you water, you roll, you whatever, and people are playing and walking around and running around on those surfaces. They get a little bit tired and they tend to slow down and spin.
You also mentioned something important, which is obviously reading the conditions.
Yeah.
And at times, South Africa has made those mistakes, not reading. You alluded to it earlier. South Africa do have Eric Simons, I think someone who's accustomed to the Indian conditions. Is that going to be someone who's going to be integral to Rob Walter?
Yeah.
I know JP Dumini as well has played, of course. How important is that support staff in terms of obviously reading those conditions and obviously
Knowledge.
finding the best 11
Yeah.
for conditions?
Simons, Dumini, De Kock, Rabada, Markram, Ngidi. There'll be more, but those are
Klaasen. Or
yeah,
recent form.
Klaasen. Yeah, recent. But yeah, he's batted and whatever there and done well there. But yeah, his
Miller.
Miller. Yeah. Turning up there year after year over the last 10 years. All of those people
Yeah.
have seen, if not every single one of the grounds that they'll play at,
Yeah.
certainly most of them. So it's going to be very important.
Yeah.
It's going to be important for Skipper to trust
Yeah.
what his lieutenants see
Yeah.
and what they say, because that's going to inform him on how best in terms of strategic selection to go, you know. And I believe it's, as much as it might have sort of come about from Rob is quite good mates with Eric and they get on, but Eric is a coach in his own right, and has got this bank of knowledge that would be useful. So yeah, I think it'll be tremendous support.
Just looking at some of the other teams in that World Cup, I mean, people don't really speak a lot about Sri Lanka, and that's because it's since the Sangakaras left and the Mahela Jayawardenas left, it's been a long process of trying to rebuild Sri Lankan cricket. But what Chris Silverwood has done now, particularly when you look at their performances in the Asia Cup,
except the final.
Yeah, except the final. Yeah, they come into the frame quite a lot because of those conditions, you know, and I think subcontinent sides thrive on that, and I think it's probably one of the best things to happen that they have an Asia Cup just a couple of months before a 50 over World Cup in India in similar conditions. How do you see the other teams, based on what you've seen recently, come into the fray? We know Pakistan, really good bowling attack, but how do you see them going into the frame of World Cup contention based on recent form?
Recent form. So I wouldn't pick Sri Lanka. I watched Sri Lanka play in Zimbabwe in that qualifier tournament. And listen, if you're South Africa, you got to be thankful that you ensured you didn't have to go there.
Yeah.
Because that stuff, that qualifying stuff,
tough
is
cricket,
cutthroat, man. Yeah. And people look and they go, nah, it's only whoever and whatever. No, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
That it's a cricket ball and a cricket bat.
Yeah.
And it's a group of players that have played more one-day cricket that can kind of put things together.
Yeah.
And you will be under pressure for longer periods of time. Yeah. And it's difficult to extricate yourself from it. So you don't want to unnecessarily be under that pressure. Sri Lanka handled it quite well, and I will say, were quite fortunate to draw Bulawayo as their side of the draw.
Yeah.
Because then conditions suited.
Yeah.
And their spinners could go to work. Hasaranga had a field day. He's going to be important in the subcontinent, in India. Because conditions suit. But he's not new to those other 8 sides. Yeah. And I'll say 9 now because the Netherlands have also had a look at him during that tournament. So whilst he was in that tournament so potent, so dangerous, in fact, it's like 3 fifers in a row and then less wickets as he went ahead, right? Because everyone then figured, oh, hold on, this is the guy we have to watch out for. And then Tikshana comes into it, and he's kind of tough to deal with. So those two are going to be important. But you have to have an all-round side, and especially when the rest of the teams kind of have an idea about who you are, how you go about things. And listen, it doesn't matter what you're playing like now. Big tournaments have a thing, right, where there's certain players only stand up for those. It's something that kind of gets them going, and they are able to perform there. Whereas when you're playing
bilateral
what are just seemingly mundane bilateral tournaments, they are unable to fully raise themselves to play to potential.
England, defending champions, obviously coming into this World Cup, they look like throughout this 4-year cycle since 2019, look like they haven't changed much in terms of how they want to approach their cricket and how they want to play their cricket. And they've obviously added those players that they think might continue the brand of cricket that won them the 2019 World Cup. A guy like Harry Brook, not in the original sort of provisional squad, comes in now to replace Jason Roy. That's big for them in terms of, you know, the X factor at the top of the innings. But, you know, he's pretty much untested and untried in the subcontinent, barring that one innings for the Sunrisers Hyderabad where you got 100. Do you see England, with the personnel that they have, going out and defending the World Cup?
Tough. World Cup in England, known conditions to them. Conditions that could kind of complement their style and what they were trying to do. And so nothing hampered them in their efforts to play that aggressively. It didn't ask questions of whether they could face different types of bowling. So fast bowling, medium pace bowling, no trouble, and then spin not assisted per se in those conditions, so they could just continue to play. Australia, where they win the 2020 World Cup, similar sort of thing. There's nowhere in Australia where the ball kind of spun or said you can't hit through the line, and you know they just did they could. That question gets asked, and you mentioned Harry Brook. I mean, the fact that he's not in the side initially sort of says England have taken note of his IPL sojourn and gone, yeah, you're a good player, but we don't want to go with you first because up at the top there are enough guys. Right? But if you walk in at 4, we don't know that you can help us. Because bar that 100, and even in that 100, the spin literally stopped him dead. Right? And of course he'll go away and work on that and try to be better. But then it's this mental battle that he must get over when he gets back there, and everyone's going, "Oh, Harry Brookson, here's spinners. Here's
welcome.
Let's get it to spin. Can you survive these 15 overs of spin, and will your team still be in a good position after we've finished bowling these overs at you? Or will you be out, or what? You know, that's so. In terms of whether they can defend it, they've got experienced players around. Harry Brook might not make the 11. He might, right? But calling Stokes back, that's about experience. It's about big match players. As you look around that side, I mean, Josh Butler is an unbelievable player. I just think it's tough if they defend it. Hats off. But I'd be surprised. They do possess sufficient sort of potency with ball in hand as well.
Options.
They've got options.
I want to ask, Poms, when it comes to in terms of the makeup, you're almost seeing contrasting styles in terms of, you look at South Africa, India, when it comes to probably batters versus bowlers, their makeup, their bowlers don't bat much. South Africa has only one top order batter that actually offers options. India is similar. And then you look at the likes of England, bat all the way to 11, all-rounders, they've got options. Is that going to be a World Cup of those type of styles where Australia has all-rounders galore as well? Because, I mean, I've had this conversation with Pila where we've been saying, I just feel some games might be decided by 8, 9, 10, and all the way to the wire because of just looking at how good these teams are. How important is that, team dynamics are going to be for the World Cup?
Firstly, I'd say you can't kind of decide to pick all rounders if you don't have them, right? Like you can think it all you like, but you also can't pick all rounders who aren't quite there in either suit, because then that doesn't help you either, right? So, as an example, Ben Stokes is not an all-rounder. He's a batter and a bowler, right? So he's a bat at 5 or at 4, as he's done, and he'll bowl as first change, or he'll open the bowling for you. Like, without, whether you go through and you say, no, this guy's the guy who I'm giving the ball, right? Not because he's filling in, not because you're trying to patch up. He's in your first 5 as your bowlers, right? And he's in your top 6 as a batter. That's that kind of player. Can't find one. You got Hardik Pandya is that player in an Indian side, right? Where he'll bat anywhere from 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7, and as a batter in India's side, and he can bowl as one of the 5 in the bowling lineup. As you go around. In India, the conditions being tough, so in Australia, for instance, it's going to require Pat Cummins to be right on it in terms of captaincy and the feel of the game. because he has a lot of resources. So to weigh up out of your 7 options, which one the best option is going to be important. That's out in the field, right? Whereas the teams that have 5 and an extra guy to kind of relieve pressure says, arrange these correctly, and they tend to arrange themselves, and you know, your fast ball is up at the front if it's not spinning and whatever, and you'll shift to the next guy, and then you'll bring a spinner on early, you might whatever, but okay, that guy's gone for some tap, I'm going to go to my spare guy, but when do I bowl my spare guy? I need spin now, and he's a spinner, let me go with him now. See, your wicket just fallen, let's go with that and see how that goes, and if he's going all right, I'll kind of go as long as I can. And am I going to get a wicket with this guy, or are we just getting overs out the way, and then we can get back to the game? You know what I'm saying? So all of that is easier to manage if it's 1 extra, not if it's like 2 and 3 extra. If you're not on it as the skipper. But if you're on it, and we expect all of them will be, right? If you're on it, then you can kind of mix and match how you see, and it's nice to have the resources. There are just some captains who don't want to have too many. In terms of batting and batting long, you say you think the games will be decided there. No. But essentially, if that happens, that's just the team pulling a game out the fire. You know what I mean? Like, if a team gets you 7 and 8 down, it's up to them to throw the killer punch, right? And if they can't, and your 9 and 10 and 11 can hang in and can bat well, then so be it. But you're not going to pick them to do that. You're not picking a 9, 10, and 11 to say they're going to win us games with the bat. If they do, and this is not to say when they go out there they shouldn't bat. They should bat, and they should, you know, use all their talents and make sure that they can get the game over the line. But it's not primary job. It's just another job that they have to do, which they would only have to do if your top order don't quite do the job.
And in terms of captaincy, I mean, again, you're looking at Timba Bavuma now has been in his role for a while. You've got Rohit Sharma, who's got a massive job. I mean, he's got the record of the IPLs, and he's kind of been given the job to obviously help India since the 2015 World Cup. The last time they'd won at home. 2011, sorry. And you've got Pat Cummins, new at the job. Butler is experience of 1 World Cup, but it also understands the conditions in the subcontinent. How important will those captains be as well, considering some of them it might be, they've had tours there, but like captaining in the World Cup in India?
Yeah, many of them I think are sufficiently experienced. Cummins, Bavuma, who's West Indies? Shea Hope? No, they're not there. They're not there. No. So I should say who is Netherlands?
It's
keeper batter.
Paris, not Paris.
No,
Paris is done.
Keeper batter.
Scott Edwards.
Scott Edwards. That's exactly it. Yeah, keeper batter. So, and I'm trying to pick out guys who it would be sort of first time, big tournament, long tournament. So Bavuma, Edwards, Cummins. Butler will be fine. He's been there. He's done it for sort of Rajasthan Royals and whoever. Go through the countries. Let's go next to Sri Lanka. They'll be fine. Conditions are the same. Pakistan,
Afghanistan.
Babar.
Afghanistan will be fine. They kind of tend to play musical chairs as far as the captaincy is concerned. But it ends up, they do. I mean, it's truth. But as far as captaincy and captaining the side is concerned, it ends up being this sort of collective effort within the game.
Yes.
They're quite happy to consult each other. The main senior players will kind of work out what's happening and the game kind of shifts towards those spinners in the middle of the game, and that's what they're trying to do. That's where they try and break games open and try and win them. So essentially, if the conditions don't quite suit, then that makes it more difficult. But all the new captains have to have open minds, because sometimes you turn up there with a sort of preconceived
Yes.
idea of what it's supposed to be
do,
like,
yeah.
and therefore what you're meant to do. But there's no meant to do anything. You've got to play the conditions as you see them then. And I expect that those new captains, as the tournament goes along, will grow, will get a little bit more comfortable or not, depending on results. But it'd be an interesting thing to watch, and I think it'll play a big part. I think it'll play a big part in just shifting the balance towards teams or away from teams when captains miss it or get it, as the case may be.
I want to go back to like playing styles, and I know Nono covered it a little bit. South Africa, by evidence of what we've seen against Australia in this series, particularly up front with De Kock and Bavuma, slightly circumspect in those first sort of 10 to 15 overs, and then they're heavily reliant in the middle order of probably Markram, Klaasen, Miller to get bulk of the runs. Do you
Quick runs.
quick runs, but bulk of the runs as well. But do you see, maybe by evidence of this series, the blueprint of them sort of being circumspect up front and making sure that they have enough wickets in hand to be explosive in the middle and the back end of the innings? Does it work in a World Cup scenario where there's going to be constant pressure throughout the 50 overs?
Yeah. In a short answer.
Yeah.
You can't win the game in first 10 overs.
Yeah.
As Australia proved.
Yeah.
You can't win it there. You can only lose it there.
Yeah.
Right? So the balance of how you go about those first 10 overs is essentially attained from and kind of determined by the balance of your whole batting side.
Yeah.
So if your resources say you can lose 3 up at the front, but make sure you go hell for leather because you bat to number 10, good luck. Go for it.
Yeah.
But you have to determine that as a side. And South Africa as a team, bat to 7. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're asking too much of anyone who's at 8 to come in and win you the game.
Yeah.
One, they don't have the time. If they have the time, then you're 6 down by over 25. That's a problem. You lost the game generally, and it's a lot to do to say, okay, you're in at number 8 and we'd like you to bat 25 overs.
It's a long time.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
Not to say a person can't do it.
Yeah.
But let's now throw in spin and run rate to maintain and right, just makes the job that much more difficult. So for South Africa to be circumspect at the front, with the knowledge that towards the back end, they possess the players that can do 10s and 12s and over, then it makes sense to me to say we can afford to be slower up at the front.
Yeah.
And in fact, we can't afford to be 3 down up at the front.
Yeah.
Right? So sacrifice all the runs you want, but don't be 3 down.
Yeah.
We can be 1 down, we can be 2 down.
Yeah.
But as soon as we're 3 down, it kind of just stops what you can do.
Yeah.
Never mind at the end of the game, in the middle of the
Yeah.
game. Because the middle of the game, with the 5 in the circle,
30 overs.
right,
30
is a
overs.
long time to not be able to find a single,
Yeah.
number one. It's also a long time to not feel like you have the allowance to take a risk for a boundary,
Yep.
right? To try and stay with the rate, never mind to get ahead.
Yeah.
So you've now gone slowly up front. Now you're 3 down, and in the middle, you're going. We need to. Hey, let's just bat here for a bit of time.
Yeah.
Can we do 20 overs?
Yeah.
How far behind the game are you then?
Yeah.
But if you don't lose wickets up at the front, and when we say be circumspect, I mean Quinton de Kock doesn't know the meaning of the word. He'll just play according to conditions, and he's good enough to, right?
Yeah.
So if the conditions say I can play my shots and I can still be in here, he'll do that, And with Bavuma up at the front, they kind of can dovetail quite nicely in that, look, we just go here and Bavuma just bats as he sees it as well, with sufficient caution.
Yep.
And away we go. So, and different teams will try different things, I guess.
How important then was that Petlukwayo innings yesterday? Because it's sort of
Could
when
potentially be in the teams.
Yeah, because when you look at the injuries, particularly he might be a sort of like for a guy like Magala, who isn't as fit as a Pehlukwayo. So him coming back into the side and then finishing off an innings like that, and yes, you mentioned that he's probably not going to decide games at 8, but it gives you that sort of firepower, extends the batting order a little bit. He can handle himself with the bat, but he hasn't been in South Africa's frame for the past sort of season or so. He's been in and out.
He's been unfit.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's fit. I saw him.
Yep.
I've watched him. Watched him at Centurion.
Yep.
He's fit. And it makes a big difference. Like, if you get fit, you get picked.
Yeah.
I mean, you at least give yourself the chance.
Yeah.
And look, I'm a stickler for fitness, right? Because it's just your own responsibility.
Absolutely.
It's not anybody else's responsibility.
Absolutely.
It's not a coach who gets you fit. It's you. You've got to get fit.
Yeah.
And like when these tournaments come around, and there's nothing you can do about injury per se,
Yes.
right? But train, be fit, be strong, be ready. It's as simple as that.
Look after yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Look after yourself. Why? Because that's the only way you're going to get a gig.
Yeah.
It's the only way you get a gig. So you can't be picked if you're out of condition. You can't be moaning and understanding they don't want to pick me, but you're unfit and you're doing absolutely nothing. He got fit. He got called up. He turned up at the squad. And I'm sure many were pleasantly surprised.
Yep.
But they're going, look at this.
Yeah.
Okay. Now he may well be on the plane.
Yeah.
I'd say with regard to playing, when you put him in the side, you don't really replace what Magala does.
Yes.
Because he doesn't do that.
Yeah.
You get a totally different player. And he is some of this and some of that.
Yeah.
Pehlukwayo. And perhaps you can go with that on a pitch. Say you're in Dharamshala.
Yeah.
Say maybe you're at Mumbai. Maybe Mohali, but that's a bit of a road, you know.
It's flat
tough.
there.
Yeah, and I know
It's
he
flat.
bowls slowies and stuff, but that's hard to bowl there, you know. But he comes into the side and potentially lengthens the order without necessarily having expectation of him to be the one to do the job, but to be able to help get the job done, you know, to kind of lengthen resources. He has to kind of make it as one, though, right?
Yeah.
So you got to say,
Is he going to bowl his 10?
can he bowl 10 over here? And if you can answer yes, then that's fine. Then in you go.
Yep.
And sometimes that answer may be no, right? Like, and I say, it's not like set in stone. Like as you sit in a change room, sometimes the best option is to say, so-and-so can't bowl 10, but we can mix and match with that guy and do this and do, and you end up with your 11. And for those conditions, that might be what is necessary to try and win the game.
Sure.
That's fine. That's fair enough.
Sure.
But in times where you need 10 from this guy,
Set.
10 from this guy, and you should be able to do it. And that's where the flexibility in selection comes.
Well, I think let's look forward. I think it's 17 days today to that World Cup.
Checking whether
check there. In terms of who you potentially think could. I mean, it's been 50 overs. Been a World Cup that's generally been won by the last 4 out of the 5. You know, home side have done well. Last time India won it, we're at home. Who are you potentially backing, or you see as favourites for this World Cup, and why?
I'm not backing anyone.
Zimbabwe had amazing qualifiers, by the way. It's just unfortunate.
No, they didn't. They didn't qualify.
How
can you have amazing qualifiers and not
a straight
qualify?
answer. We need a straight answer.
I mean, how's this guy? Like, really.
Let's be honest.
Up
When I
until
watched
the
those-
last moment.
So that's not an amazing qualifier.
They were amazing. Okay,
it's like running a race and falling before the line. Like, come on, man.
Russell,
Even look at that.
Okay, I was trying to bring you in here.
Really? Okay. Who do I think? If I had to put money, it would be on India.
Yeah.
However, I don't know that they'll be able to withstand just the pressure of it. I don't know that this squad has it all covered. There's a necessity for particular players to be there, I think. And if those players don't have a kind of smooth and injury-free World Cup, then they look beatable, right? So Bumrah as being number one, right? You need him to play the whole series.
Mohamed Shami.
Shami always, right? But you kind of, if Bumrah's there, you can handle not having Shami.
Yeah.
But if Shami's there, you don't quite handle not having Bumrah, right? So that's why I say Bumrah as one. The others, Ahmed Siraj is good. They kind of the three they'll use are those three.
Yeah.
But the other two without Bumrah is kind of slightly different. And then Hardik is an extra, right? So you imagine Bumrah not there, and you have Shami and Siraj and Hardik. You're still not thinking that they're going to be, you know what I mean? I think their big man has to have a big World Cup.
Without a doubt.
The man, the legend. And he'll be, he'll be so determined. I can't even imagine. Virat Kohli, career to die for.
40. Hundreds.
That's
crazy.
And this format, he's absolutely the king.
Head and shoulders above everyone.
He's absolutely the king in this format. And the fact that he is in home conditions, I think, it kind of gives them an in. Then the support cast, I'd pick one other youngster who I think will be a person to watch, maturing really nicely, and you could watch him bat for days. Shubman Gill.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yep.
Like, so, yeah, and then obviously the spin, but the spin's fine. They'll be okay. I was surprised they didn't go with Ashwin.
Yeah.
I was surprised they didn't. Just for big match temperament, and it's not to say the guys who have picked can't do it. Yeah, the guys who have picked can do it.
Is it?
But I think there's also aura when it comes to Ashwin, where when you're playing against other big sides, he comes up against them and he's sort of half got the wood over them because he's this great big legend of the game, you know? So, yeah, I was surprised there, but such is life. I still think
there's an injury to Akshay Patel, so potentially he comes into the selector's mind because obviously you got Jadeja who does the same sort of thing as Akshay Patel. So maybe the point of difference might be the off-spin of Ravichandran Ashwin.
Yadav.
Yeah, they've got lots. I mean,
they've got lots
in that department, they have lots.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, Aksha bowls, bats, fields, very good. You know, Jadeja, same story, bowls, bats, fields. Yadav being sort of left arm and tricky. Yeah. You know, if it spins, good luck. You know, if he's bowling well.
He'll definitely play against South Africa.
And he had a field day here, right? When they were on the tour so many years ago. And then subsequently left the side because he wasn't bowling so well, confidence gone. And he's literally on a kind of return, you know, and he's returning as better, bowling quicker rather than up in the air as he was before. It was successful before, people didn't know which way he was going. Now it has to be quicker so people can't get to him. And so, all of those things, they have the tools, but I just say the pressure of being at home and the fact that you could win and then crunch one, you know? But they know how to sort of deal with it. They would be the next ones to do it at home, you know? It'd be like something else. But anyhow, that if I were to put money on, that's who I'll put money on. As a second team, to say who would get in the final, it is literally a lottery. You know, I mean, India might not get there, but but it is a lottery. Coming from sort of left field, you'd say, what have Pakistan got for us, right? Like you don't
Which
know
Pakistan
what
side is going to turn
like
up?
we don't know what they've got for us. Like, but there's excitement. I was bothered by the injury to
Nasim Shah.
Nasim Shah, yes, but Shahin Shah Afridi, and his return hasn't been It's not quite there, but this is just the event that could say, "Oh, yo, by the way, I'm back,"
I'm up.
you know, and away he goes. So, I don't know.
How big is it going to be for them actually playing in
Think about that.
Yeah. I think, I mean, they haven't toured India for a long, long time, and Pakistan being in India, of
huge
course,
deal.
winning a World Cup in India for them might
That's
be
the
even
point.
huge
deal, and that's the point. And
Yeah.
that's why I say, what have they got for us? Because we don't know. So in that region, you sort of go, everyone's going, oh, India, right? And all this Indian World Cup and all of this, right? And they'll just be quietly within their camp going, we need to do this here.
Yeah.
This is where we need to do this, right? For all sorts of reasons.
Yes.
Can we do this here? And as far as potential and tools and so forth is concerned, they would have them. Are they playing their best cricket? Probably not. But it's never mattered in times past. You know, they turn up in the tournament and they get on a roll and away they go. So, I don't know. There'd be sort of these dark horses. The other side, you guys asked about England. I think they're okay. You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay enough to get to a semi-final, not to a final.
I'm not sure that I'm gonna go. They'll be in the final.
Okay.
You know, I'm not. And this is why I say in my head it's a lottery with all the others. It just it wouldn't surprise me if they're in the top 4. It wouldn't surprise me if they're in the top 2. But I don't know that I could with certainty say those guys are gonna be in. You know.
Yeah. The format, I think I've actually, when I saw the fixtures, I mean, I know it's been useful, but it's amazing that you're playing everyone.
Yes. I like it. I like it. I like it because, you know, before what you'd have is there's this groups, and even before the groups, you'd have these sort of cursory make it into the finals or make it into the real part of it. You know what I mean? And it'd kind of be like, no, is, you know, are these guys here or are they not here? You know. Whereas having it as these 2 qualifier tournament and a qualifier tournament with like 10 teams, it says get to the World Cup, right? And then when it's the World Cup, nobody is there going, we didn't have our chance. No, you did. You had a qualifier tournament and you couldn't get there. And because of time, you can't play for 10 weeks, you know, because then everyone gets bored and nobody's watching and whatever. And it's just financially to put it on is like a whole lot, right? So these 2 tournaments are cool, and there's this sense of achievement for the Netherlands, and I hope they go well. And I hope they kind of turn over some sides.
Sri Lanka,
Sri Lanka as well. Who'd have said, oh, we shouldn't be at the qualifier tournament. Fine. Now can you beat some teams in the actual World Cup? But everyone plays everyone. At the end, leaves nobody in any doubt as to who the best team was.
Absolutely.
Right? And so, let's see how it goes. Australia, South Africa, they sort of turn up as sides who you think, oh, you know, they're big teams, but not sure. You know, New Zealand, you can probably pencil them in as a semi-final side just because they just tend to
they
get
know
through.
how to.
They just get through. Everyone will be worried about everybody else. And it'll be New Zealand and the other 3. You know what I mean? Like that's, every single World Cup, it's like that. You sort of, doesn't matter which World Cup, 2020,
50 over,
50 overs, Test Championship. They're like there, you know? As a side that's greater than the sum of its parts sort of thing. There's nobody you're looking at and saying, oh, he'll win it for them or whatever, but they somehow managed to put it together in place. So,
you've chosen the side that you think could do well.
Yeah, who do you guys think, by the way? So tell me.
I personally, I mean, when I spoke to Upila, I said, I mean, I'm just going to start at home. Said the only way I see the Proteas having a good World Cup is those first 3 games. Sri Lanka first up. You've got Australia, which is after this tour, be a massive game. If you win 2 in a row, in the Netherlands, that means you've got 3 gun wins up front, could really potentially set you up for the World Cup. So that's I'm hanging on the
He's
fence
being
and
a-
saying
he's being
it's
an
those 3
optimist.
games. Those 3 games.
No, you're not answering.
No, I'm going there. I said I need to start at home. I need to start at home and saying that's where I see South Africa's chances. If they do well those first 3 games, it really sets them up. But I have to go to, I think, England's setup for me. It allows them to have a chance in this World Cup because of how their team is set up. I'm a huge believer in these all-rounders. And I like the teams that, and also I think the conversation we haven't had is these, there's been massive conversations now about brands, the style sides play, and I think the way England have been playing their game, their cricket, I think it's brave, of course, and it gives them a chance to always get those big scores, which I think will be important with their bowling attack. So I'm going England because of how they set up, match winners they have, and of course Ben Stokes coming back. It gives them that edge for me to be contenders.
So that's your team.
That's the team I see.
Australia.
You're going with Australia?
Yeah, Australia. I think they just have World Cup pedigree. I mean, if you look at the past, they turn up at every World Cup and be the team to beat at every World Cup.
So do they have their players this time?
Smith comes back. Cummings comes back into the side, potentially Stark, potentially
There's
Maxwell.
one person into the batting, and the batting has got an issue. So,
Maxwell.
So you think Smith and Maxwell will sort out the
They
batting
sort
and
out
be
that.
fine?
Yeah, they sort out that batting and they'll be fine. Maxwell gives.
Do you think Marnus will get in?
Marnus will get into the side, but I don't know if he'll play in the 11.
Who is he getting in for? Because he wasn't in it.
Well, he's not.
Head is injured.
Head is injured.
So
Okay,
he
you're a
potentially, I mean, they haven't said that he's not going,
Yeah,
but he might not make it.
yeah. So
They can't take him in injured. If they
Yes.
take him in injured, they're going to struggle to replace him.
So I reckon Australia. They've got the ingredients. They've got the pedigree behind them. And then gun players come back into the side. It makes it a more experienced, more complete side than we saw here in South Africa. And over a course of a tournament like a World Cup, they get into their game a whole lot more than any other side. And I feel that's for me, because they know how to win big games with the experience that they have. It makes them the team to beat at every tournament that comes around.
Another conversation, probably just quickly. Haven't spoken a lot about death bowling. I mean, South Africa probably struggling a bit with that. England have got a few options. Australia, Stark, if he's fit and is there. Pat Cummins. Hazelwood struggled at the death against Klaasen. Could that set a few teams apart if you don't have those gun players to close innings off, especially in those in Indian conditions?
Yes, and not necessarily. So as I see it, in the 50-over game, your most potent bowling attacks are the ones that give teams the best chance of success. And by that I mean not only at the back in terms of defense, but an ideal bowling attack essentially attacks all the way through, right?
Yeah.
So up at the front you're attacking, and if you're punching holes into the batting lineup, so 1 as a minimum up at the front,
3.
and then 2 as you go along, or 3 with fast bowlers and spin in the middle of the game, and whatever. So if you're dominating the game with the ball, it's 3 up front, and then you'll get 3 more, 4 more in the middle
6,
with
7
seamers
down.
and spin, and then by the time the team gets to the death, they're 7 down trying to smash you. And if you're bowling at the death and guys are 7 down trying to smash you, you've got to back your bowling team that they'd be able to kind of get out of that, you know, and it'd be less dangerous, and you kind of you hope it's not like number 1 and number 9 batting, but even if it is, you have an end where you can kind of get some respite, like oh, let's get him off strike and go over there, right? However, I think all of that's going to be dependent on conditions. If conditions allow for, teams to be 2 and 3 down through the course of a game, then death bowling becomes the whole issue. So which of the teams are best at containing and defensive bowling at the back end of a game, because nobody is succeeding in kind of being potent up front and attacking through the game to get a whole lot of wickets. And sometimes over the course of a tournament, that can flip, right? So you might turn up at the start of a tournament and teams can bat and the wickets are really good and they kind of are 3 down and 4 down as they go into the back end. And then as the tournament goes along, you lose wickets, and when you get in towards the end, you're 7 down because the middle is spinning and the spinners are taking wickets. When you're 7 and 8 down and you come to the back, end, it makes it difficult. So I think, yes, you've got to address it as an area and have your 2 candidates particularly, and essentially you want 3 to
share the load as well.
to be able to bowl at the back end, which is sort of like last 6, 7, and 8 overs. And if you have those, then you're okay. If you don't, and you have 2 and you're mixing and matching, if the one has a bad day, and then it comes into it. And that's also speaking of, just like you're talking about South Africa, all the other teams have it as well, where they have these guys who at the back end can absolutely bludgeon the delivery. So if you watched Australia play, if the game goes a different way and you have Australia not many down, and then you have Green and David, whoever coming in at the back end, and there's a game to chase down with sort of 9 and 10 overs to go. More times than not, they get that job done. But when they have to try and do it with
longer
25 overs to go, that's more difficult for them because it's a bigger game, isn't it? And a lot more to do.
Pom, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. I think we've tried to eke out as much as we possibly can. Just about some of the teams that come into contention for this Cricket World Cup, and of course the conditions that are going to be at play in India. Really appreciate your time. Really appreciate your knowledge and sparing a couple of minutes for us.
No worries.
Thank you.
None whatsoever. All good.
Do
you have a question?
100%.
Yeah.
Sitting with the most silkiest, commentator. One of the easiest people to listen to. Sometimes I'm like, am I watching a game or am I just listening, enjoying listening to Pommie? So, Brabham, how do you get into commentary, and when did you start? How did you get into the industry? And sorry, what has been your favorite game to commentate then?
Oh, that's a tough question. I mean, commentary by mistake, I suppose.
You told me the story, but you can retell it.
Nothing's by mistake, I guess. Everything is kind of
design.
By design, God ordained, I suppose. I got asked to do commentary, to do interviews actually, as a beginning. And when I was injured, I would get asked to come and guest commentate, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And I suppose that's because you're a player. You just want to play. And you also see yourself, so I saw myself as a guy who would play until they were kind of a minimum of sort of 35, 36. And even then, I would have wanted to carry on. As it turned out, I don't think I was 30 yet when I finished. But a combination of a whole lot of stuff, which is a story for another day. But being in the commentary box, it's kind of tug of war. Are you in the commentary box? And you want to be on the field.
Other side.
Am I this guy who's just criticizing everyone? Or am I watching the game? What am I doing? What's my job? And that took a long time to figure out. But once I did figure it out, which is, and I'll explain, my job is to 1, watch the game, 2, analyze the game, and 3, try and make everybody feel like they're there with me. They don't have the privilege of being at the ground, and so can I make them feel like they are? And that's essentially it. And in why I do it, and why I continued, and why I went from hating it to loving it. I love the game of cricket. That's a bug that bit a long time ago, and it's not going, right? But I also love the television side. I managed to see very early on in the period where I was like, this is nonsense, what are you doing? Just like, it's easy to talk about it, blah, 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 all of that, right? Player speak, right? That's how you talk as a player. And then I was taken into an outside broadcast van to see how this kind of gets put together.
Yeah.
And I was flabbergasted. I was just like, that's ridiculous. You can't do that. How do you do that? Like, that's impossible.
Yeah.
And I sat there and kind of went from section to section. So from director's section, where there are all these monitors. You were talking more than 20 monitors that this guy is looking at, and kind of selecting each one, and each of these camera guys giving various shots, and then deciding which is the pertinent one at the time and which one isn't, and then go from there to kind of the sound people who are making sure whatever, and then the vision people who are making sure that the picture's right, and then replays, then what? How do we do this? Like, this is impossible. Yeah. And it showed me then that the whole television aspect is a team aspect, and it's like a link, a chain linked, and each link along the chain is important. And if it breaks, then you don't have this, right? Yep. Like, you have nothing at the other end. No matter who along the chain
breaks it.
It breaks the chain. That's it. And that's what kind of gripped me and made me like television as well, and film and production and stuff, because it was like, this is like the ultimate teamwork. You can't afford to drop the ball. And as one who's on the microphone, if your words are poor, not sufficiently carefully chosen, you spoil what could be the greatest moment with the best pictures and sound and everything else. So you have a responsibility. And then never mind that, I mean, just throw in the fact that you have this podium where if your thoughts aren't considered, they are irresponsible, because whilst many will think you're an absolute idiot and don't want to listen to you, there are probably more who hang on your every word. And not to say you should kind of pander to them more, but if one person hangs on your every word and you don't carefully consider the words you're putting out there, then you're doing that person a disservice. So
responsibility.
Keeps you in check, and you kind of have to make sure that you're doing the right thing all the time.
You had a little story about one of your first commentary stints where you had Richie Beno and so many legends in the commentary box. How did that feel?
It was a long time ago now. That would have been the 2003 World Cup. Michael Holding, Tony Gregg, Tony Cozier,
wow,
Ramiz Raja, Richie Beno, Mpumelelo. So I remember.
You didn't make the 2003 World Cup squad.
I didn't get selected. So and then I got asked. So it was quite hard doing it. Like, working on it was tough, because you miss out on selection, and you think you should be playing, all of those things. So bittersweet, But you move on, such as life. Sun comes up the next day. That's just how it goes. So kind of sitting there doing this game, and it's in Australia, and you're sort of thinking, what? I don't know. And one of the times I was rostered with the great Richie Beno, And I mean, I grew up watching the guy. Watching clips of the guy play, bowling his leg spin, Captain Australia, all of that. And then listening to him and Bill Laurie and Tony Gregg on Channel 9 and Channel 4 in England, that iconic music that you used to hear, and then just seeing him on the TV screen. all those old pictures, and you just see guy with the perfect hair and this cream jacket. So
look.
And so there he is sitting alongside you in his cream jacket, and you have to sit next to him and talk. You know, like, and that's like what? And I remember having this stint where I think I made 3 sentences, and I think I spoke 10 words as a maximum. You know, yes, I think so, and very good, and he could have done better. Oh, you know, something stupid. You know, like I'm going, whoa, man, that's hectic. And then coming off feeling really spare, you know.
Yeah.
And at lunchtime during that game, I sort of hanging about by the nets, guys, hitting up and whatever. And the director came to me, and he was a guy who kind of, when I kind of started and I was asked to interviews and stuff, he said, you should do this, you can do this, you know, you can do commentary before that World Cup.
Yeah.
And then on that day he came in and said, listen, man, and I said, hey, this is tough. Yeah, man, like, what am I going to say? Like, come on, man, like, that's rough, man. Like, can't put me with that guy, you know? And not that you could put me with any of the other guys. I was just like, hey, dude, like, come on. He said, listen, that guy's going to do his job. Yeah. You don't have to worry about him. Just you do what your job is. Yeah. There's what you bring, which is who you are and how you are and what you see and how you see it. Yeah. And there's how he sees it. That's okay. And in the gaps, don't be afraid to just be yourself and bring that, you know. And since that sort of piece of advice and feeling, and it wasn't that I felt small. I didn't feel small. I funnily, I care nothing for the grandness of people and things and stuff. And I pay credence to whoever. I'll give you your kudos, but that's it. You know. So it wasn't that. It was just that, like, I didn't think I was supposed to be there. You know. And so since being told that, listen, no, you can only bring you. And that's it. Since then, I've only brought me. I just, I see the game a certain way, and I experience it as a fan and a kind of former player who enjoyed particular aspects of it, and that comes out when I talk about it.
Yeah. I'm just gonna put this out there. I mean, I've seen your different hairstyles of Pommie. I've seen different versions from back in the day with the dreads to the fro to now the more. I'm a 2000 hairstyles. Let me call it that.
2000.
When I saw you yesterday, I was like, oh, okay, nice.
Yesterday I forgot to call my.
So that's just that. But in terms of comms, who do you look up to? And I mean, even your style, I always enjoy the way you ask questions, because I feel at cricket at times we tend to have change room conversations where people might not quite understand certain, but you always kind of delve even deeper to say, what do you mean actually by saying that? Where does your style come from?
I don't know. I'm a curious person. I mean, that's, but I also like to explain, and I suppose that kind of goes kind of hand in hand with curiosity. I've also curious children. I was curious before that, but there's a reason for just about everything. And if there's a reason for everything, then you have to ask the question that gets the reason, right? And half, if not all, of interviewing people is asking the right question, right? And for me, watching cricket and, you know, trying to give those who are watching everything, I think essentially what I try to concentrate on is what question are you asking as you sit at home. So many a time I'll ask questions that I know the answer to, but it's not for me. I'm not asking for me. It's not about me, right? It's just for this kind of explanation that lets whoever it is who's watching into a place that they might not otherwise get into. So because we know that no runs around the field 3 times before the start of play, we don't ask them that. We don't ever ask them about before the start of play. and everyone asks about what happens across the rope and what you're doing on the field, but everyone sees that.
Yeah.
But if I say, how did you prepare for today? And you tell me about cereal and whatever else, then I say, well, what about mentally?
Yeah.
And then you tell me, and I say, okay, but we saw you running around the field. Why do you do that? And there are all these things, and the beauty is in the mundane.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Yeah.
And whilst it's mundane to those who are in the environment, those who are not in the environment have absolutely no idea about it.
Peak interest.
And it seems revolutionary when they find it out. They're like, what? That guy runs up hills. Oh, that guy does what? They would never have known if you don't ask the question. So, it's and in commentary, they're the sort of P's and Q's, right? Like you do what you're meant to do, but then there's kind of how to fill the space and tell the story, which I don't know that anyone could teach you. I think you kind of feel that as you go along.
I think I'm covered.
Yeah, that was
I think I'm good. If we ask another question, it might spiral to another whole 2 hours of a conversation. So
I don't like talking. You
guys
make me
I know.
You guys
right, ask the right questions.
Yes.
yes.
Pommie, again, thanks a lot.
No
I know we thanked you like 7-10 minutes ago, but
no worries.
Lunga's fault.
It's Lunga's fault.
It was
actually.
important though. Thank you, Lunga.
Thank you very much. All the best. And enjoy
When do you
the
leave,
World Cup.
by the way, Paul?
I hope to leave on the 4th of October.
Okay.
All things being equal.
Okay.
You're a man who doesn't stay at home much in a year.
How do you know?
I'll see you on TV when we watch you.
How do you know I don't fly back? How do you know I'm there? Maybe I'm here.
Yeah.
Some quick flights from the US.
If he's not at the cricket, he's at home. Fantastic.
He's
Thanks
running.
a lot.
He's running up
Oh,
the
he's
hill.
running.
That's really close to my house. It's like 500 meters and back.
Pom, thanks a lot. Absolutely appreciate your time. If we had a gift, we'd give you something. But
when he comes next time, we'll have a gift.
Startup podcast. We'll have something for you next time.
Thanks.
Yeah, we'll have. We know you enjoy your wine, so we'll have something along that line. Okay. Yeah.
Red, white.
Red.
Is this still part of the podcast?
No.
We cut
We haven't cut.
We cut.
I don't mind wine. Wine's good.
Yeah.
I like it. It's complex.
Yeah.
Like me.